simple Google search quickly brings up why this word has been debated for thousands of years. Dictionary defines it as relating to beliefs about what is morally right and morally wrong. So, nowadays, is it morally right to give someone $10,000 for every day they stay in a confined space? I mean, it's a lot of money, so perhaps yes. But what if in order to get this money, you continue to take away their access to basic human needs?
We're gonna... What the heck? Why are the lights on? What are these shenanigans? Where's my flashlight?
Would that then still be ethical? Well, it's a tricky one, but to help us out will be this thing, the BPS Code of Human Research Ethics. This handbook basically lays the groundwork of what is morally right and wrong when conducting psychological research. Now, I know Jimmy is only making YouTube videos, however, in the previous episode, we determined that his contestant-based videos basically unstandardized human experiments. So I reckon this would be a cool way of looking both into psychology and the ethics behind the videos of MrBeast. To do this, we will go over 5 main sections, with each section increasing in ethical concern. So, starting us off is section number 1. Having informed consent from your participants is so important. Without it, well, there is no study, experiment, or video. Consent should be gathered way before any video takes place, as well as letting contestants know exactly what they are signing up for. Our little handbook states that consent consists of being given sufficient information to enable them, the contestants, to make an informed choice. But this informed choice part may very well be difficult to achieve, as usually the hundreds of thousands of dollars up for grabs creates a great distraction from all the potential negatives. That's why the handbook goes a little bit further to say that the principle of proportionality should apply, such that the procedures for consent are proportional to the nature of participation and the risks involved. Now that does raise some eyebrows, as risk is quite high up our list, but for now we need to ask whether MrBeast does any of this. Short answer is, well, I hope so. You can gather consent verbally, but preferably contestants should sign an actual document. And as consent is private data, we don't really know how it's gathered, stored, or renewed. So really all we can do is hope that the team behind MrBeast gather and store participant consent without having to deceive them. But when it comes to deception, things get a bit more complicated. Deception in psychology is when a researcher intentionally misleads or provides false information to their participants, usually in the hopes of achieving higher levels of external validity. Deception like this is present throughout all of psychology, even in its most famous experiments, like the classic line study. In this experiment, Mr. Solomon Asch actively deceived his own participants into thinking that the people around them were real participants, and really, they were just confederates of the study, answering in the exact way that Asch wanted them to answer. However, our handbook actually says that deception should only take place where it's essential to achieve the research results required, where there are no alternatives. Fortunately for Asch, his study is considered to be relatively ethical, regardless of needing to deceive his own participants. And this is because you can't really investigate conformity without a certain level of deception. For MrBeast and his videos, it's kind of the same thing, as a certain level of deception is needed for his contestants to have a genuine and entertaining reaction to their circumstances. However, the problem arises when the levels of deception rise to a point where contestants are at a genuine risk of being harmed. Contestants therefore should have the right to know what challenges they will be exposed to, the potential risks involved, and if any surprise challenges are falsely informed, then they should not exceed this already set out barrier. But when it comes to winning money, people are willing to push themselves well beyond their comfort zones, potentially putting themselves in risky situations. According to our handbook, risk refers to the potential physical or psychological harm, discomfort or stress to human participants that a research project may generate. So after analysing all the survival type contestant videos, 3 main risk factors consistently emerged. Firstly, sleep deprivation. I mean, We spend about 1/3 of our lives sleeping for a reason. It's when our bodies regenerate and perform essential functions. Missing out on sleep not only leads to fatigue, difficulty concentrating, and mood swings, but it also dramatically raises the risk of chronic diseases such as heart disease, kidney disease, diabetes, and a host of other life-altering conditions. In MrBeast videos, the primary culprit behind sleep deprivation is the relentless exposure to artificial light. This
Constant beaming light
disrupts the contestants' natural sleep cues, making it nearly impossible to get the rest they need.
I physically feel my eyes stinging just because of how bright the lights are in here.
Next is social isolation. Contestants are usually isolated from friends and family, or just everyone on the planet, for months on end. This isolation can have profound negative effects, closely mirroring the impacts of sleep deprivation, but with an even heavier toll on mental health, as social isolation significantly increases the chances of depression, anxiety, and even dementia. So finally, when you combine these factors with an ultra-processed, monotonous diet, you create a perfect opportunity to escalate these risks even further. Thing is though, each of these risks can be easily managed, simply requiring MrBeast and his team to prioritize the mental and physical health of each contestant over the general sentiment of the masses. This actually raises an intriguing question, that being if prioritizing the health of an individual meant a significant drop in viewership, what direction would MrBeast take? And the answer would really reveal a lot about how much ethical considerations are taken into account during these videos. Unfortunately, on numerous occasions, these risks were not properly managed, resulting in contestants actually being harmed. Thankfully, nowadays in psychology, experiments work on the principle of maximizing benefit whilst minimizing harm. This way, both the individual participant and general society benefits. However, for MrBeast and his team, there seems to be a great emphasis on maximizing entertainment with little regard for the consequences on an individual scale. In fact, MrBeast himself constantly reinforces the idea of trying to make the most entertaining videos possible. This is obviously completely fine, as at the end of the day, he's an entertainer, not an ethics consultant. But when you literally have people trying to sue you, this may just be a sign that you've gone a step too far. So, at this point, he really needs to start doing what every good psychologist does after their experiments, and that is carrying out a debriefing session. Debriefing is basically an interview between the researcher and participant that allows the researcher to reveal the true aims of the study, if there was any deception, and also to find out whether the participant needs any additional support after the study finishes. For MrBeast contestants, two things should always be offered: therapy or counseling, and access to a financial advisor. Sadly, it seems MrBeast provides neither, potentially causing the contestants to have unresolved trauma induced by months of social isolation, whilst also spending life-changing amounts of money without appropriate guidance. Not a great combo. So, when the cameras are off, you still need to care for your contestants, especially if they were harmed, as no amount of money should justify ethical wrongdoing. But maybe in a capitalist system, it does, as payment happens to not only be our final category, but also the one with the highest amount of ethical concern. As a researcher in psychology, you have to pay the people that participate in your studies, unless, well, they explicitly volunteered. But usually the payment amount is reflective of the time and effort spent doing the study. Some studies can take a couple of minutes, but other studies can take a few decades. So, it's up to the researcher and their funding budget to create a price that fairly pays their participants whilst also maintaining an equal balance of power. Doing this basically means that the amount of money on the line does not influence the participants into doing something they may not want to do. So, with that said, if you were to hypothetically increase the payment amount to hundreds of thousands of dollars or even millions, well, the power would instantly shoot up in the favor of the researcher, causing them to have insane amounts of leverage over their participants. Combine that with the possibility of leaving home with nothing whilst missing out on millions, and that leverage now gets you to a point where you can literally suck out any altruistic motivations that an individual may hold. I mean, in so many cases, being selfless actually works against the contestants, usually making the people that prioritize themselves a winner, or at least a strong contender for winning. Of course, there are exceptions, and altruism is a very loaded concept, but by paying, or at least offering to pay, 6 or 7 figures to your contestants, MrBeast firstly skews the power dynamic in favor of himself, whilst promoting a hostile me versus you environment where everyone is against each other, making them more likely to fall for any of the previous categories of ethical concern. But the even bigger problem is that the category that holds the highest level of ethical concern is also the one that underlines the whole brand of MrBeast, giving out ridiculous amounts of money for doing mostly ridiculous things. And with each video, that expectation of more money, more views, and more entertainment grows larger and larger, making this category almost impossible to fix. But MrBeast can definitely do one thing, and that is to guarantee everyone who participates in his videos a minimum payment amount, regardless of how far they lasted in the competitions. But in order for this to properly work, it has to be reflective of the main prize, and this way you can start to rebalance the power dynamics between MrBeast and his contestants, therefore making his videos more ethical while still maintaining the essential entertainment levels that his videos need in order for them to succeed on the platform. So, long story short, are MrBeast videos ethical? Well, I'll let you decide the answer to that one. But let's just say if they were actual psychological experiments, they would never get approved by any kind of ethics committee. But then again, MrBeast is not conducting psychological research. He is instead making entertainment for millions of people to enjoy, so why does it matter whether they are ethical or not? A very big reason is that his content involves a huge number of people, not just the contestants, but also the people watching at home, editing the videos, making the ideas, and everything else. Prioritizing ethics could not only improve how contestants are treated during production, but also strengthen his long-term success on the platform and generally make his content a force for good that benefits all parties involved. With that said, there'll be some extra items in the description that didn't quite make it into the video, but are definitely points of consideration. So I highly recommend checking those out, and if you're already there, why not drop a little like on the video and subscribe to the channel? It would really make my day. But I guess for now, time will only tell what direction Jimmy Donaldson will take. But I hope for his sake and the people around him, it will be the one that takes him to the correct destination. This was in fact a 3-part series, so a massive thank you to all of you that stuck along, but if this was your first one, worry not, as you can check out the other 2 parts right here. I hope to see you there, but if not, have yourself a wonderful, lovely day.